Good morning, students. I welcome you all for the session. Today, we'll be going to discuss regarding the context switching and threads. First, we'll be going to discuss regarding the context switching. So, what do you mean by a context switching? So, in the previous class, we have seen regarding the processes. Is it not so? So we have seen different types of processes and what are the different states of a processes we are having. So all the things we have seen in the last class. Today we'll be going to discuss regarding the context switching, which is a very important concept in the processes. So let us get start with this context switching. Fine. So when we are going to take a process, like when we are going to take, suppose as day, we have seen many of the examples. So this is the process P1 and this is the process P2. Fine, we are having two processes. So context switching in the sense, suppose here we are having the CPU. So here is the CPU processor. So what is the operating system will do is, it is going to allocate a processes. These are the processes P. So here all the processes will reside over here in the state. Fine. Here all the processes are going to reside. So whenever the processes wants to execute by the CPU, the operating system is going to allocate this process P1 to the CPU. Fine. So this is how we have done, we have been making the allocating the processes from the process state to the, that means I mean to say the ready state to the running state. So initially all the processes are waiting in the ready state. When we want to execute by the CPU, that process should reside in the running state. Fine. Then only the CPU is going to execute. So this is the running state where CPU is going to reside. Now what we have to do is, we have to make one process after another in order to execute by the CPU. So we'll be going to check many conditions, like we can see the priorities. Which process has given the which priority? Which process has given the highest priority? All these things we'll be going to see when we are going to allocate a process to the CPU, right? So when it comes here, suppose for example, this process P1 is currently in the running state. That is, this process P1 is executing by the CPU. Fine. So let us discuss now what the topic we want to discuss is we want to discuss the topic of context switching. So what do you mean by context switching? I'll be telling you now. Fine. So context switching means, see here. Here initially the process P1 is executing by the CPU. So when the process is executing, in the last class we have seen that for each and every process control block is going to be attached. Is it not? So a process control block is going to be attached for each and every process. So this is the PCB, process control block for process P1, and this is the process control block for process P2. Fine. Process control block stores many informations, like what are the data we are going to use, what is the program counter, what is the process ID, what are the stack registers we have been used, what is the account information, what are the files, open files we have been used. All the information we will be going to store in the PCB. We have discussed regarding the PCB in the last class, right? So when this process P1 is executing by the CPU, so in the middle of this execution of this process, it needs some IO device. So this process needs some IO device. For example, it needs the printer. Fine. It needs the printer. So what this process P1 will do, like what the operating system will do, the operating system will keep this process P1 in the waiting state, right? Will keep this process in the waiting state. So before, now comes the task of context switching. So context switching in the sense, like we are going to remove the process from the CPU and we have to allocate this process, we have to keep this process in the waiting state. So before removing the process P1, so here the process control block is going to be updated. So in this, what is this process ID? suppose this the id is 1, till which instruction it has executed. So till which instruction? Till 10th instruction it has executed. From which instruction it has to continue? From 11th instruction it has to continue. From which memory location it has stored? Some x memory location it has been stored. So before switching the process P1 from CPU to waiting state, what we have to do is we have to store the information related to process P1 onto the PCB. So that is the main important task. So until unless we are not going to save the information onto the PCB, suppose here process P1 without saving the information onto the PCB, if you have moved on to the waiting state, again when the printer task has been done, again what the process P1 has to do, again process P1 has to admit in the CPU. So when the CPU is going to execute P1 again, from where it has to execute, till which instruction it has executed, till from which instruction it has to continue, all the things it is not going to be aware of. So that is the reason why we need to save the details onto the process control block before context switching. So context switching is nothing but shifting from one process to another process. Suppose here pre1 process we are terminating, and what we are going to do, we are going to make the pre2 process to execute in the CPU. So context switching is nothing but shifting from one process to another process, where when the CPU is executing, so first pre1 process is executing, later before because of some input output of operation, we have make the pre1 process in the waiting state, but we don't want to make our processor to be in idle state. So what we are going to do, we are going to allocate this process P2 to the CPU. So what we have done, shifting from one process P1 to process P2, this we call it as a context switching. So before a context switching, so the processor which is going to be shifted has to note or save all the details onto the process control block. So that is the reason why we need a process control block. Process control block has been attached to each and every process at the end. So when we have done the context switching, so all the details are going to be stored in the process control block. So when again P1 is in the waiting state. If suppose if P1 wants to enter into this running state, so if P1 wants to enter into this running state, P1 will check the PCB. So PCB will tell the information that till where you have executed, from where you have to start doing execution, where you have stored the information, all the things we'll be going to get from this PCB. So this is how context switching. Context switching is nothing but shifting from one process to another process. Before shifting from one process to another process, we need to save the details of each and every process onto the PCB. So without storing the details, we can't retrieve the information, or we can't get the information like till which instruction we have executed, from which instruction we need to execute, where we have stored the particular thing, all the things we'll be going to get in the PCB only. Without storing the information onto the PCB, we can't get the details. So this is how you will be going to have the context switching. Fine. So see here, context switching is involves the storing of text or content. Fine. So here context switching involves the storing the context or state of a process. So what we'll be going to store? We'll be going to store the context and the state of a process. Where we are going to store? We are going to store all the details onto the PCP, that is the process control block, so that it can be reloaded when required and execution can be resumed from the same point as earlier. As I have said you, when we have stored all the details onto the PCB and we have exited out of the CPU, when we have exited out of the CPU, and again if we want to enter into the CPU, we have to get all the details. Where all the details have been stored? All the details have been stored onto the process control block. So this is the feature of multitasking operating system and allows a single CPU to be shared by the multiple processes. Multiple tasking is nothing but we'll be going to have a CPU and we'll be going to have different tasks. So task 1, task 2, task 3 and task 4. So we'll be going to have different tasks. So all the tasks are going to be executed by the single processor. So that is the multitasking. So many tasks are going to be executed by the single CPU. How we are going to execute all the 4 tasks by making use of a single CPU in the sense by using the concept of context switching. So this is how this context switching concept can be explained, fine. So in multitasking environment, we'll be going to have a single processor, but you will be going to have many tasks. All these tasks have to be executed by the single processor only. How we are going to achieve this in the sense by making the concept of context switching. Context switching is nothing but switching from one process to another process. Not only simply switching from one process to another process. By switching, it has to store the details of that particular process onto the PCB before shifting to the another process. Why? Because when it has to resume back again, it will be going to collect the information what it has stored onto the PCB, and from there it is going to start the execution. So that is the main important concept of this context switching, fine. So next the thing is context switching triggers. When what are the situations when we'll be going to make the context switching? So what are the different possible ways in which we'll be going to make the context switching? So there are majorly 3 different times we'll be going to do the context switching. The first one is multitasking, second one is interrupt handling, and the third one is user mode and the kernel mode. So we'll be going to discuss this one, fine. So where we are going to use this at what times we are going to trigger this thing. So when we are going to trigger this context switching, when we are going to trigger this context switching in the sense, we are having 3 ways. 3 times we are going to context switch. The first thing is multitasking. So the first point where we are going to context switch the process, where we are going to switching among the process. The first point, the triggering where we'll be going to done in the things, we'll be going to done at the time of multitasking. So as I have said you, fine, multitasking is nothing but so when we are going to do so multitask in the sense here we are going to have a process P1, here we are going to have a process P2, here we are going to have process P3, and in the same manner we are going to have process P4. Here in the middle we are going to have the CPU. So CPU, the process P1 should execute by this single processor, P3 should execute by this single processor, P2 and P4 should also be executed by the single processor. We are having totally here 4 processes we are having, but we are having one CPU we are having. All these 4 processors should execute by this single CPU. How? In the sense by making use of this context switching. So if P1 has done, so we'll be going to do many of the things in order to have the context switching. Suppose if you have a time limit, suppose if we kept a time limit of 2 milliseconds for each and every process, 2 milliseconds for each and every process, in the sense here 4 processes we are having. So the first process here, the first process will come first, and it will execute for how many seconds? It will execute for 2 milliseconds, and then it will exit out of the CPU. So before exiting, what it will be going to do is it will be going to save the details. And after first process, the second process will come, execute, saving the details. And when we are going to switch from second to third, second process details are going to be saved, and third process will enter, executed by the CPU. And when third process is going to leave, that means when we are going to switch from third process to fourth process, the details of this third process is going to be stored onto the PCB, and now we'll be going to do the fourth process. Fine. So one circle has been completed. So second one came, third one came, and fourth one came. And next we'll be going to have the second turn. Second turn in the sense, suppose this process P1 needs 5 milliseconds of time. This process P2 needs 6 milliseconds of time. This process P3 needs some 7 milliseconds of time. This process P4 needs 4 milliseconds of time. So in the first turn, what we have done? We have done 2 milliseconds of time for each and every process, and then we have done context switching. And still in this 5, how many milliseconds completed? 2 milliseconds completed. So 3 milliseconds time is required for the process P1 to complete its task. Here also 4 milliseconds is required for the process P2 to complete its task. Here also 5 milliseconds is required for the process P3 to complete its task. Here also 2 milliseconds is required for the process P4 to complete its task. Now in this time, again we'll be going to have after P4, like we'll be shifting again to the process P1. Again process P1 will enter into the CPU. It will execute for 2 milliseconds of time. So it needs only 1 milliseconds of time. Now process P2 will enter into the CPU and executes 2 milliseconds of time. Still it needs only 2 milliseconds of time. Here process P3, still it needs 3 milliseconds of time. And process P4, it has completed. So it has completed in the sense it will be totally exited out of the CPU. Totally exited. Fine. And again in the third turn, again process P1, 1 millisecond it will execute, 2 milliseconds it will execute, 3 milliseconds it will execute. Later on, what are the processes that are there in the job queue will enter into the ready queue, and from ready queue it will enter into the running state. So this is how we'll be going to give a time limit for each and every process in order to execute. So here what we have to focus mainly on the thing is, here how we are going to do the context switching from one process to another process, that you have to see. So this is how, this is the first trigger. This is where we'll be going to trigger the second uh, trigger the processes, that is a multitasking. If you are having many processes and if you want to shift between the different processes, then the context switching concept is going to be used. And again, what is the second case? What is the second case where we'll be going to use the context switching? So what is the second case where we'll be going to use context switching? In the sense, here we'll be going to make use of this interrupt handling. So interrupt handling is the second case where we'll be going to make use of context switching. So second one is interrupt handling. So second one is the interrupt handling. So what do you mean by a interrupt handling? What do you mean by an interrupt? So stopping the execution of a CPU. So here the processor is executing one task. Here CPU is executing X task. Fine. And some interrupt is nothing but it is an disturbance. It is an unofficial way of stopping the processor in order to execute the particular task. So here interrupt handling. So here we'll be going to have the interrupt. So in this interrupt we'll be going to send given to the CPU. So interrupt in the sense, CPU will halt the execution. So halt the execution. And when we are saying interrupt, in the sense when we are halting the program, so by making use of this interrupt, I am telling the Y program to execute first. So CPU will halt this X program and will continue doing this Y program. After completing this Y program, it will again go back to the X program. So this is how where the context switching can occur. So this is also one of the case where we are going to make use of context switching. So multitasking, in the sense only one CPU is there, many tasks are there. So among the many tasks, in order to move from one task to another, we will be going to make use of context switching. And the next one is interrupt handling. When a processor is executing some instruction, when a CPU is executing some instruction, interrupt is nothing but, interrupt is itself saying that it's an sort of disturbance, stopping the execution of a CPU for a moment. So interrupt means, so when we are given interrupt and telling the process why to execute first. Why? Because based on some of the reasons, based of many reasons. Why? Because maybe Y is having the highest priority than X. So we want Y to be executed first than X. So this is how we'll be going to have the interrupt. So now CPU will halt this X program, come and execute the Y program. After completing this Y program, it will return back to the X program and start doing where it has stopped. So how it is going to know from where it has stopped, in the sense, in order to check the contents of PCB of a X program. So for X, there will be a PCB. So this processor will be going to check the PCB. So where it has stored, what is the ID of the process that it has stopped, and from till which instruction it has executed, and from where it has to executed. All the details you will be going to get from the process control block or process control block. So this is the second one. And next, the third one is user mode and the kernel mode. So context switch between user mode and kernel mode. So as we have seen between the different modes, the you will be going to have two different modes. This is the user mode, and the second one we will be going to have is the kernel mode. So this is the kernel mode. So this is the user mode. Fine. So here also we have to make the context switching. Suppose if an application program is going to be done by the user mode, so if this application program needs to use some hardware resources, so but hardware resources, user mode can't directly execute the hardware resources. Only kernel mode is going to take care of the hardware resources. So now the what the here the user mode bit is equals to 1. When it is in the kernel mode, the mode bit is equals to 0. So here when the user is in the user mode, the mode bit is equals to 1. Now he wants to make use of a printer. This user wants to make use of a printer. Printer is under the control of kernel mode. So now the user has to shift his mode from user mode to the kernel mode. There we will be going to make use of this context switching. Here also context switching is going to be used, and the user will be shifting from user mode to the kernel mode. When the user has been shifted from user mode to the kernel mode, automatically the mode bit will be 0 after doing the task in the kernel mode. That is, after handling the printer, if the task is completed, again the mode is going to be shifted from kernel mode again to the user mode. So here the mode bit is equals to 0, and when he shifted to the user mode, again the mode bit is equals to 1. So these are the three different triggers where we are going to have the context switching. The first trigger where can we have is the multitasking, and the second trigger where can we have is the interrupt handling, and finally the third one is the user mode and the kernel mode. We have to shift context switch between the user mode and the kernel mode. We'll be going to make use of this context switching. So this is how we'll be going to shift between different processes by using the concept of context switching. So you have to keep in note that, like, before shifting from one process to another process, he has to store the details of that particular process onto the PCB. Without saving that details, he can't shift to the process can't shift from one process to another process. So that is the main thing you have to keep in mind. Fine. So this is how all the three multitasking, interrupt handling, and the user mode and the kernel mode switchings are going to be done. Fine. So multitasking. So in multitasking, a process is switched out of a CPU. So if a process is switched out of the CPU, so we'll be going to give a chance for another process to run. So the state of old process needs to be saved, and the state of new process is to be loaded onto the CPU. On the primitive system, process may be switched out by the scheduler. So what do you mean by primitive system? Primitive and non-primitive. So I have said you that preemption in the sense, so preemption in the sense, forcibly stopping. Preemption in the sense, forcibly stopping. Non-preemption in the sense, until unless the process completed its work, we can't remove that process from the CPU. We can't remove process from CPU. Fine. So this is the non-preemption. So on a preemptive system, that means user has the capability of removing the system from the CPU forcibly. A process may be switched out by the scheduler. By making use of a scheduler, we'll be going to switch out the process. Interrupt handling in the sense, the hardware switches a part of the context when an interrupt occurs. So when an interrupt came, it is going to switch from one process to the another system between the user and the kernel mode switching. So if a transition between the user and the kernel mode is required in the operating system, then we will be going to have a context switching from the user mode to the kernel mode. So this is regarding the context switching. So the next topic what we are going to deal with is the threads. So these are the steps that are involved. So what are the steps I have said you know? Those are the steps we'll be going to have in this context switching. So next concept is the threads. So threads is an important concept. So what do you mean by a thread? First of all, you have to learn regarding what do you mean by a thread. So what are the advantages of threads we are having, and what are the different types of threads we are having, we'll be going to see in this session, right? So when we are going to have, so we'll be going to see regarding threads. Thread is nothing but a lightweight process. Simply, we can say that a thread is a lightweight process. So, what do you mean by a lightweight process? So, let me give an example like what do you mean by a thread? Suppose I'm having a program. So, I'm having a program. So, this is the first program I'm having. In this program, I'm having 100 lines of code. Fine. In this program, I'm having 100 lines of code, 1000 lines of code. So 1000 lines of code I'm having in the program 1. So this is a process. Process, when it enters into the running state, it becomes a program, as we all know. Process, when it will become a program, process when enter into the running state, then it will becomes a program. Fine. So me having a program, this program is going to have 1000 lines of code. Suppose I'm executing this program, so I got an error. So I got one error. So what I have to do, I have to keep checking from starting instruction 1 to instruction 1000. I have to keep on checking instruction by instruction, so that where the error is, I'll be going to find. So that is very much difficult. So in order to find out the one error, we have to check the whole program again and again. So that is difficult. So in order to make the programming easy, or in order to have the multitasking, what we are going to do is we have created a concept called thread. So we have created a concept called a thread. A thread is nothing but a small part of a program. In simply, we can say that a thread is nothing but a small part of a program. So here I have said that 1,000 lines of code are there, 1,000 lines are there. So what I have done is I have created different threads. Fine. I have created different threads. So in this thread one, I have created uh, some 500 lines of code, and thread 2 I have created some 500 lines of code. This 1,000 lines of code I have divided into thread 1 and thread 2. So I'll be going to execute thread 1 first. Fine. I'll be going to execute in 500 lines of code. So this has been executed correctly. So correctly in the sense, in this 500 lines of code there is no problem. So the problem we is with this second 500 lines of code. Now I'll be going to execute this 500. Now I'll be finding an error. So here in this 500 lines of code only I have to check. I need not touch this 500 lines of code. Is it not so? But when it comes here, I have to check all the 1,000 lines in order to find out my fault. But here I can find only a 500 lines of code, so that I can fetch or search in this 500 lines of code. So here the time is going to be saved. Fine. So this is the one of the major advantage of how we are going to have thread. Suppose if you are going to have 500 instructions, in the sense you can create 5 threads. So in one thread, we'll be going to have 100, 100, 100. So if you are going to do 500 lines of code at a time, it will be going to take much amount of time. It will be going to be difficult in order to find the errors, and it will be going to complete in it won't be complete in less amount of time. So that if you are going to execute 100 instructions, we can complete it very much easily. And if you are going to find any error also in 100 lines of code, we can find out very much easily. So that is the main advantage of what we are going to have a thread. Thread is nothing but we are dividing the large program into small number of parts. Suppose here 500 lines of program, in the sense I am dividing that 500 lines of program into 5 parts. So this is the part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 and part 5. I have divided into 5 parts. Each part is going to have 100 lines of code. As I have said you, is a thread is the lightweight process, and a process is the heavyweight process. Like you will be going to have much of the things. So this is the advantages we'll be going to discuss later. So now you have understood the difference between a process and a thread. A process, program and a thread. Process is nothing but a process is nothing but when it is in the ready state, we call it as a process. So when that process has been loaded into the running state, we call it as a program. When this program has been divided into small parts, we call it as a thread. So that is the difference between a process, program and a thread. Fine. See here. So a thread is a flow of execution through the process code. So in that process only, we'll be going to have a small part which is called as a thread. Suppose here I am saying like I am having this process P1. This process P1 is divided into 2 threads. So this is a thread 1 and thread 2. So suppose in for a process P1, this process P1 should have a CPU, should have its own hardware resources, should have its own stack, should have its own program counter, all the things has to be there for this process only. There is no meaning, there is no possibility of sharing the resources over here. But when it comes to a thread, so this process we have divided into through two threads, that is thread 1 and thread 2. So this thread 1 is having its own program counter, it's having its own stack, it's having its own register. So these are the things a thread is going to have. So thread T1 is a thread. T1 has the own program counter. Program counter is nothing but program counter stores the address of the next instruction. So that a program counter is going to hold. Stack is going to contains the execution history. Whatever the things we have done, all the things we have been stored into the stack. And when it comes to the registers in the sense, so the current working variables, what are the local variables, what are the global variables, so all the variables are going to be stored in the register. These three things are going to be have for each and every thread. Thread T1 is going to have its own program counter, T1 is going to have its own stack, T1 is going to have its own register. In the same way, T2 will be also having the same. T2 will have its own program counter, T2 will have its own stack, T2 will have its own register. These are the things which cannot be shared by a thread. Then what are the things that uh, what are the things that a thread is going to share? So thread can share the things like code, data, and files. So these are the three things a thread can be shared. What are the things that cannot be shared in the sense? Program counter, stack, register. These three things cannot be shared by a thread. And what are the things that can be shared in the sense? Code segment, data segment, and files are the things that can be shared. See here. So execution through the process code with its own program counter. Own program counter in the sense, it is a program counter that we call it as a PC. What is the task of the program counter in the sense? It keeps track of which instruction to execute next. What is the next instruction to execute? That address we have to maintain in the program counter. And the system registers. So what are the current working variables, that are the local variables or the global variables, that will be going to store in the resistance? And what is going to be stored onto the stack? The current execution history will be going to store onto the stack. So these are the program counter is 1, resistors is 2, and stack is 3. These are the three things we will be going to have for each and every threads. These are the three things which cannot be shared. And what are the things that can be shared in the sense? We will be going to have the data segment can be shared and the code segment can be shared. So these are the two things, and open files is the three things which can be shared among the threads. But when it comes to the process, there is no possibility of sharing. Each and everything is allocated for the process P1 only. But when it comes to the threads, here we can share the data, we can share the code, we can share the files. So when we are sharing something among the threads, like we used to complete the work within a very less amount of time with very much efficiency. So that is the advantage of why we are going to make a process into different small number of threads. So, and as I have said you, a thread is a lightweight process. Lightweight process is nothing but we don't have that much uh, don't need to have all the things specifically for a thread. A thread is a lightweight process with a minimal number of instruction, with minimal number of resources, with the minimum number of data, code, and everything. We call it as a lightweight thread. And each thread belongs to exactly one process. This is the main thing you have to remember. So each thread belongs to one process, and no thread can exist outside a process. So when I am talking regarding this thread T1 in the sense, this T1 should be a child of P1 and T2 should be a child of P1. But no other thread can be come from other process. So that is the main thing you need to know. Threads have been implementing in network servers and web servers too. So this is the main area where we are going to make use of threads. In network servers and web servers, we will be going to make use of threads. So this is the regarding the threads, fine. And next one is the diagram that is going to show the single thread and a multi-thread process. So as I have said you that the resistors, the program counter, the stack can be is there for own. It is not shareable. These three things are not shareable. For each and every thread, we used to have resistor, and we used to have stack, and we used to have program counter. For each and everything we used to have by their own. But what are the things that can be shared? In the sense, we can share the code segment, we can share the data segment, and we can share the files. So these things, these three will be in shareable mode, and these three things we can't share it. When you have seen a multi-threaded, this is the single thread, and when we have seen a multi-thread, so this is the thread 1, this is the thread 2, and this is the thread 3. So these three things can share the code, data, and files. But when it comes to thread 1 is having its own stack, count, program counter, and register. Thread 2 is having its own stack, program counter, and register. Thread 3 is going to have its own stack, program counter, and register. So that is how we'll be going to make use of shareable, like code segment can be shared, data can be shared, and files can be shared. But the program counter, the registers, and the stack is going to be there for allocated specifically for each and every thread. And next one is the difference between the process and a thread. So here, when we are going to discuss regarding the process and thread, we will be going to have many of the differences between the process and the thread. The first and the foremost thing is, here, as we have already known, it is a heavyweight process. Why? Because a process need to have its own resources, own CPU, and own memory. Everything should be of own. There is no need of there is no possibility of sharing between the processes. So that is the heavyweight. When it comes to the thread, a thread is a lightweight process, so that it can share the uh, code segment, it can share the data segment, it can share the files. So this, and it is going to have less number of codes. So that is the main thing we have to point on. And when it comes to this, process switching needs the interaction of the operating system. So in order to switch from one process to another process, so in order to switch from another process to another process, we have to contact with the operating system. But when it comes to the thread, no operating system is needed. We can simply shift from thread 1 to thread 2. No operating system is required. But here, when we want to shift from one process to another process, we have to make sure that operating system is going to take the charge, and it is going to shift from process P1 to process P2. But there is no need of operating system here. Why? Because all this P1, T1 thread and T2 thread are from the process P1 only. So there is no need to contact with the operating system. And third one is, in multiple processing environments, each process executes the same code but has its own memory and file resources. That's what I have said. It is going to have the code, it is going to have its memory, it is going to have its own file resources. But when it comes to this threads, they can share some set of files to the child processes. Shareable is there in the threads, but the processes are non-shareable. When it comes to this process, suppose we are telling that process P1 and process P2. When this P1 process is blocked, then no other process can execute until the first process is unblocked. So here the process gets stuck. If anything, so if this P1 system gets crashed, in the sense, this P2 system can't work independently. Why? Because the two system needs to cooperate in order to complete a task. But when it comes to the thread, each thread can execute independently. So here we are having thread T1 and thread T2. It is going to work independently and it is going to work independently. It is not going to depend on one another. So blocking or stucking is not going to be done in the thread. So that's the reason threads can be execute very much faster when compared to the process. Multiple processes without using threads use more resources. Obviously, they require large number of resources, printers, scanners, mouse, keyboards, everything needs to be used by its own. But when it comes to the multi-threaded process, if 5 threads are there in the sense, they can use one printer, one mouse. So one by one they can use the they can share the resources among the threads. So that is the major advantage. And the third one is each process operates independently, but here threads read or write other change. The one thread can read, write or change other threads data. Here in process P1, if you have written one thing in the sense, that is local to that process P1 only. If process P2 we have written in the sense, that is not going to be modified over here. But when it comes to thread T1 and thread T2, one thread, this T1 can write on T2, read on T2 and change the data on T2 and vice versa, but it will not happen over here. P1 in the sense exclusively for P1, P2 in the sense exclusively for P2. This is how we'll be going to have threads are very much beneficial when compared to the processes. So these are the differences. And what are the advantages of a thread over a process? So what are the advantages in the sense? The first and the foremost thing we'll be going to have is the responsiveness. Responsiveness in the sense, the output of a thread is very fast. Why? Because each thread is going to have a less number of codes. So if in the lesser number of codes, finding the errors is also very much easy, so that we can execute. The response is going to be get very much faster when we compared with the process. And next one is faster context switching. Context switch between the thread is lower compared to the process context switch. So process context switching requires more overhead from the CPU. If the CPU is involved, we need to have some lots of headache will be there. If CPU is not involved between the threads in the sense, we can switch between the threads very much easily. Effective utilization of multiprocessor systems. Multiprocessor in the sense, like if you have multiple threads in a single process, we can schedule multiple threads on a multiple process also. So this makes execution very much faster. Next one is resource sharing. Obviously, when we are going to make use of threads, resource can be shared from one thread to another thread. But when it comes to the process, each and every process should have its own resources until unless operating systems take the charge. And next one is communication. Communication between the multiple threads is very much easy, as they all share the common address space. Why? Because in P1 only, so here we will be going to have the P1. This P1 will have some address. So in that P1 only we will be going to have T1 and T2. So same address space it is going to use. But when it comes to the process, different process will have different address spaces. So these are the advantages of threads over the process. This is how we'll be going to make use of threads. So context switching is nothing but switching from one process to another process, not simply switching from one process to another process. Before switching from one process to another, it has to save the details. That is the major thing. So in where the triggers can be done of a context switching. So the first one is multitasking. Second one is interrupts. When interrupts came, we'll be going to switch from CPU to that particular interrupt. And the third one what we are having is a very important one. So these are the things, that is the user and the mode and the kernel mode is there. So in user mode and the kernel mode, we have to shift between the two things. So that is also the three ways in which triggers can be done. When it comes to the thread, a thread we call it as a lightweight process. We are having many of the advantages. Responsiveness is more, resource sharing is can be done in threads. We'll be going to get the output very easily. All the things are the advantages of a different threads over the process. So this is how we'll be going to make use of different threads in our system. So with this, we'll be going to conclude our today's session. Thank you all students. Have a nice day.